43 years is a long time to wait for answers, but that's how long those investigating a possible murder of a woman with ties to Traverse City have waited. Tonight, they have one answer, but they're hoping you can provide some information for all the questions that still linger.
We need to let the bad guys know that it's not okay to do this here or anywhere. You can't just come to our communities and try to rip us apart. You can't get away with that here.
Lake Erie, March 30th, 1980. The body of a woman washes ashore.
When she's found, she is nearly skeletal remains by that point. Very little to go off on figuring out her identity.
Investigators were able to piece together she was white, likely in her 20s, about 5'5" and 120 pounds, but little more than that.
With no name, no identity, no direction for police and detectives to take this investigation.
A cold case emerging from the cold waters of Lake Erie.
It would appear that she had been in the water for a considerable amount of time.
While that time took a toll on her body, remarkably, it may have left the only clue investigators had to work with intact.
She was wearing a dress, so her clothing was really the only thing to go off of. And Sandusky Police Department, they deserve a big kudos and attaboy because they stuck with this case for 43 years. They never gave up on figuring out who this victim was.
43 years of effort, 43 years without an identity, a clue, or a break in the case until now.
The Porch Light Project is a nonprofit organization here in Ohio, and we focus on victim advocacy, where we can bring justice and hope to family members of victims, especially from cold cases.
And they may be one step closer to doing just that. In 2021, the Porch Light Project funded new DNA testing from a sample obtained from the remains of the woman who died in this dress. And it led to the first break in the case in decades.
It took all these years to get the science to the point where we could find and positively identify her.
Her name is now known, Patricia Eleanor Greenwood. Born in Bay City, Michigan in 1948, disappearing 31 years later, without much known of the time in between.
Her having a footprint in Traverse City, footprint in Saginaw. I'm hoping that this reaches a lot of people in Michigan because that is where I think we are going to get our biggest and best lead.
A lead that will help build a timeline and maybe identify a suspect.
We need to figure out who put her in the water and why.
Armed with a name, but no idea what she looked like, they're hoping someone watching this recognizes the dress or the name or the circumstances around the disappearance and can provide them with their next big break of being able to put a face with that name.
Once we can get an image of her, get a picture of her, and find out who she was with and hanging out with leading up to whoever put her in the water.
We're given a name at birth. Investigators in this case were given one 43 years after a death. A potential breakthrough in a case that never got so cold as to be forgotten.
It's important because if people don't talk about these stories, if they don't work on these cases, they just go away. And it's like it never happened. And these were somebody's loved ones, somebody's daughter, someone's sister, perhaps someone's mother, brother, uncle, what have you. And we need to fight for these people.
Council approved $300,000 to fund a witness protection program in the city.
And I think that it's a very needed thing here in the city of Flint, and it will be very instrumental in helping us to solve crimes.
Detective Sergeant Tyrone Booth with the Flint Police Department says this program is needed for people to come forward as witnesses in crimes.
We do believe that this will allow individuals with knowledge about criminal activity the comfort to come forward and provide crucial testimony that will allow us to seek warrants for arrest for individuals who are actors of crime.
Last June, the department, city, and Genesee County Prosecutor David Layton announced this program, but money was needed in order to make it happen. That money will be used to give witnesses a sense of security.
If a witness doesn't show up for a preliminary examination, normally the case gets dismissed if it's a witness who has to tell about one of the elements of the crime. This happens way too often.
And it's a reality in some cases. Layton says that the program will place the witness in a temporary housing in hopes it'll help.
If we can protect witnesses and convince them that they're safe, then I think that we have a better chance of achieving justice for the victims of the crime.
Because we'll be removing those elements from society who are guilty in many cases of committing the crimes that are taking place. So we do believe that this will have a positive impact on the reduction of crime and more importantly, increasing public safety.
Right now, Michigan does not have a witness protection program, while there is one through the federal government that only applies to federal cases. There's been legislation in both the United States Senate and House that were introduced this year that would give grants to states and local municipalities to start a witness protection program. However, the bills have not progressed any further.